aren't familiar even with what that term is, what does it mean to curate? And what it is you bring together different artists. It's almost like creating an artwork in itself by choosing the artists. And I think that Tanta Pennington, who organized this particular show, was really wonderful to watch her process, and she'll talk a little bit about it. But just, it really reflects what I was saying about these different kind of sensibilities. So Tanta took the approach of coming up with an idea and then going out to the artist and saying, this is my idea, how would you express this idea? And she was quite specific in that the work had to be made for the show, for this particular idea. So there's only, I shouldn't say there's only, but there's 5 works, and each artist is responding to this one idea. So I'm just kind of relating it to the work upstairs, just because it's that same kind of sensibility where you put out something, like an instructor will give a project, and then everyone comes back with the results. And often it's quite surprising, and you look at it and you think, did I assign this? But you kind of go with it, right? And I'm sure, Tanta might have had that experience too. Like, you put it out there and see what comes back. So it's been a real pleasure to work with Tanta. And it's been a year. And it was interesting, a year and a half probably. And Tanta came to us, John and I, he's on the curatorial, he's part of the curatorial studies. Tanta came to me with this idea, to myself and John, the angle of reflection, angle of incidence, and we kept saying, you have to make it more specific, right? Because it sounded, what does it mean? And the irony is that in the end, your whole aesthetic approach to this show was extremely specific, right? In the sense that Tanta really wanted the utmost of quality in the work, and she, much to my surprise, your strictness with the artist when she was telling me they have to do it this way. But just like that evolution from being so open-ended to really kind of honing it down to making a quite exciting and refined exhibition. So I'll introduce you to Tanta.
Thank you very much. There's a few people that I have to thank right away, and I'll feel badly if I don't. And one is David, my husband, and best friend, who, this whole project started September 2009. And I would forever be going to him and saying, well, what do you think about this? And what do you think? And there would be very gracious replies. And then he helped clean out, paint out the whole room, and design the structure for the poetry. And also John and Wendy, as I first went in September with probably 40 pages of this great idea, here is the angle of incidence and the angle of reflection done. And they just kind of looked at me and I just sort of got big and smiled. And then it was kind of shoved back to me. And then that started the very long process. And then also my own personal editor, Vanessa, who kept saying to me, my daughter kept saying, you cannot have a sentence that goes on for seven lines. You have to put in a comma. You cannot simply do that. And so to this whole process, I realized that it was really important to render. And by about March, I finally had one piece of paper, the angle of incidence, the angle of reflection, and what I wanted. And this whole process, I was thinking of the artist that I wanted, and I wanted one piece, as Wendy said, just one piece each, which is really, really difficult to do because then you have to put the absolute essence of yourself in it. And I wanted them to be a little bit different. And I love painting, I love drawing, but I decided that I wanted to be more sculptural and, of course, the magic of words. So Anne Hopkinson, who wrote the poetry, when you read it, you'll get a catch in your heart. And that is her gift to all of you. Like forever when you read words, you will think of her and you will think of her angles and her reflections. Rhonda Usipiuk? Sorry, I screwed up on it. Anyway, she did the 10 Sisters.
Where is Rhonda?
Rhonda's her. So Rhonda, you have a name. Yeah. And we all have name tags on because you have to ask the artist questions because they really have put a lot of work into this.
And they love talking
and
about
they
their
love
work.
talking. And Rhonda did the 10 Sisters. her gift to all of you is that when you're looking at the night sky, and you will think of the black hole, and you will think of all those spaces out there, or you will think of relationships, because angles are not always positive. Sometimes they're not, there could be negative angles, there could be negative reflections. And so this is extraordinarily thoughtful. June Higgins.
I'm here.
Did The Beacon of Desire. And it is absolutely joyful. So on days when you think that perhaps your life is angling off in not the direction that you wanted, and all the reflections are not quite what you want to see, you can think of June's effervescent and bubbly and colorful piece of work, which is also very serious. There's some seriousness in there, tucked in. And Marie Kajdasz did The Peephole. And her gift to all of you is reflection, windows. You're walking down the street, it's just a normal day, and you look in the window and you see reflection. And Jillian, player, over there, who has the magnificent video presentation and sculpture. I stood here for a long time watching it, and I could feel the breezes blowing across my face. And forever when I'm on a beach, I will think of this and the reflections. And somebody asked me, I think it was Anne asked me recently, how I came up with the idea in the first place. And Marcel, middle son, who was an engineering student at UVic, was at the dinner table one night in September 2009 and saying, talking about the angle of incidence. And I said, well, what is that? And he said, well, you know when you pick up a stone and you put it in your hand and you chuck it, and it either ricochets up, and you don't know how far it's going to go, you don't know how many skips you're going to get, or it's going to sink into the water. He said, that's it. And I went, oh my God. He said, plus. He said, that's where light reflects. And I thought, that's it. I mean, we could all work on that for the whole rest of our lives. And Lindy and John are always talking at one of the pillars of schools of ideas of art is that it's what's all around you. So my gift to you is when you're at the beach and you pick up a stone, that's art. Thank you very much.
My name is Kajdasz. This piece is mine for this show. It's called Peephole. It relates to the curator's concept of the angle of incidence, the angle of reflection, in the sense that I'm working with the ideas on the exterior or panels of the piece. In relation to the sub-theme of windows and how light is reflected in different ways as it comes through different windows. So when we look at all the windows in the world around us, we can imagine what's happening in relation to how the light is being reflected in each of these spaces, imaginary spaces. Interior side of the four panels relate to the four seasons and how light is reflected in different ways through the different seasons. We're invited to look through the peephole and experience both aspects of this piece in relation to Higgins.
I'm Hopkinson. I'm a writer with the Thursdays Writing Collective down at the Carnegie Center in Vancouver. And I write poetry. These poems I wrote for my friend Tanta. And we've been friends for a long time. She gave me the challenge to write about the line of incidence and the line of reflection. And I just thought how incidence and reflection are so important to writers, to what they say. So that's how the three poems came up. Thanks.
When I started to think about the angle of incidence show and the premise behind it, the angle of incidence is the path that energy takes before it hits something and then reflects. So I was thinking about how the energy or the thing that comes along that angle is pulled in by desire, and I wanted to make a machine that would capture that energy right at the point of impact. And I tend to think that that point of impact is sort of a fluid point. It may only seem to take seconds, but who knows, time might be sort of fluid there. So the premise of my sculpture is to make a machine to capture this energy and not allow it to reflect off. And I've used materials that are very appealing and making it kind of in disguise so that the energy coming in can't tell that it's going to be captured. It is coming towards this through desire, and the title of my piece is Speaking of Desire. The energy comes in, is drawn in by the playfulness, the light-hearted materials, bright colored materials, and is captured. The energy then becomes the machine, and that's my whole premise in this show.
Okay. Hi, I'm Rhonda Usipiuk, and I'm here in the Side-Room Gallery today with my piece, The 10 Sisters. The 10 Sisters is a piece that was specifically made for Tanta Pennington's show, and it represents a wave train that consists of 10 sections of wave, and it is I have these little pearls on here that represent the moon, which is reflected 400 times per wavelength. The show the Tanta invited us to be a part of is quite interesting because I see it as being somewhat scientific. So when I made the piece, I tried to make something that was possibly a scientific phenomenon, but at the same time be an interesting piece of art. A lot of people have mentioned to me that I'm going minimalist, and if I am, that's entirely fine with me. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, hi. This piece that I have is called Nascent State. I started this piece by watching the ocean and the light reflecting on the ocean, which for me really corresponded to the topic of this show called Angle of Reflection, Angle of Incidence. And it was a very literal topic when I was watching the light actually reflect onto the water and bounce off. So in that aspect it was very literal. It took me to a different place as I started bringing in other elements and started thinking about the ocean and thinking about my relationship to the ocean. I ended up with a piece called Nascent State, and that means it means an emergence. It means an emergence before thought, the place you go to before an idea arrives in your brain. Or it also means an emergence of a chemical. So if we're thinking about a new element, it's an emergence of a new element in chemistry. But I was thinking about the place before thought, and it got me thinking about inspiration in my creative process. And so I realized just how much the ocean plays a part in that inspiration for me. All the years that I've lived here, and as everyone else, we are such a part of the ocean. And so Nascent State became this project, and I find it's a very ethereal place. It's a place we don't think about, because obviously when you think about it, you're not in it anymore. You've stopped being in the nascent place. So I wanted to just pay a kind of a tribute to that place before thinking, that gap, that place where you don't even realize you're being inspired by something, and things are brewing, and then you get the idea, and then you create. And so that's what this is about. Thank you.